What's up, YouTube and fellow citizens of the world? My name's Eric. Welcome to my little YouTube channel, I America. Hey, I wanted to put together a small video this evening because something really raised the hairs on the back of my neck earlier today while I was doing a little research for the Washington Legislative Session 2023-2024. Particularly, a concern sort of came over me regarding what it appears to be an amassing of power by one of the more important offices in our Washington state, and that office is the Attorney General's office. What it appears, after I've done a bit of research, is that a number of bills, and I don't know if you know anything about Washington, but right now there's like 13 or 1400 uh, bills going through the legislative session, and there's a bunch of them that seem to expand or add to the powers of the Attorney General and the authorities. And this might be typical. I don't know. Uh, I'm not super politically savvy and I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a regular old guy who's gotten interested because I'm a little worried about my children's future. And I want to do what I can to make sure I'm a good steward of that as best I can. Well, whatever it takes. So anyway, what I found was this abundance of bills, and on each individual bill, they sort of seem like not that much of a big deal. But when looked at as a big picture, sort of like a big pot of stew, a big pot of political stew, it's pretty concerning, especially when we have a couple of them, the more important ones, maybe the more inflammatory type of bills that are trying to be passed. Anyway, what I want to do is go over sort of freestyle with you about some of these bills. So let's take a look. All right, so what we have here is the Washington State Legislature's website. And what I did is a keyword search for Attorney General, and these are the bills that popped up. 165 of them to be exact. And what I'm going to do is just sort of run down a few that I cherry picked out that I thought were relevant and probably sort of set the tone for why my concerns sort of came about and blossomed earlier today. And it's sort of been happening, but particularly today, it almost it really hit me hard. Anyway, let's take a look. So the first bill that came up that has the word Attorney General in it is Bill 1579. All right, and this is basically a bill that has to do with the Attorney General's office overseeing any instances of police brutality or police use of force. And it seems like a good idea. I mean, nobody wants police, especially with what's been happening, you know, in the public eye, that they like to broadcast. Nobody wants that. Nobody. Even people that support police, even police themselves, good ones, they don't want that. They want to make sure, we want to make sure everybody is, you know, taken care of and their constitutional rights and their well-being aren't infringed upon. Anyway, this basically gives the Attorney General additional powers and authority over the prosecutions. It looks like an act relating to establishing a mechanism for independent prosecutions within the Office of the Attorney General of Criminal Conduct arising from police use of force. So it seems like it's just an additional set of powers and maybe a toolkit that allows the Attorney General to solve a problem. I don't know if it's a problem that cops or cops that do bad things aren't prosecuted. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you might think about that. But it seems like it's sort of an issue that should be held accountable locally within a department, perhaps, or in a county sheriff's, or something of that nature. And again, this bill by itself maybe not that big a deal, but I think if we look at this in its entirety, sort of all these things you might share my concern. So again, we're going to 5120, an act relating to establishing a 23-hour crisis relief center in Washington State. it sounds like that's like a hotline that people can call if they're in crisis, and I believe it puts the attorney general in charge of that hotline. I could be uh, wrong, but it seems like they have some sort of oversight uh, that comes into play. Let's see if I can find it out. Da, 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 da. Um, well, I think it's interesting because this is one of those things that could be, um, yeah, okay. Legal counsel means attorneys and staff employed by county prosecutor office or the state attorney general. Um, what does that have to do with? It's part of the definitions. Well, what it does is it worries me that maybe there's too many irons in the fire, okay, or maybe it's got a little too much control. Fingers are in too many soups, that sort of thing. I don't know if that's a real thing, but that's what that bill sort of made me think about. Let's see, what's next? All right, we got the 1130, an act relating to protecting public safety by establishing duties of the firearm industry members engaged in the sale and manufacturing. Again, and we have a companion bill 5078, which they're both probably pretty close to the same thing. We're going to take a look at this. An act relating to protecting public safety by establishing duties of firearm industry members engaged in the sale, manufacturing, distribution, importing, or marketing of firearms, ammunition, component parts, or accessories, to adopt and implement reasonable controls to prevent the diversion of firearms and related products to straw purchasers, firearm traffickers, unauthorized individuals, and individuals who pose a risk to themselves or others, to prohibit such firearm industry members from creating or maintaining a public nuisance, providing for investigation and enforcement by the Attorney General. So basically, if somebody does something bad with a gun, it sounds like the Attorney General can then go sue the manufacturer, which I don't know. That seems to give a little bit of a slippery slope to a lot of things. I would think cars, uh, food additives. We could go into power tools. I mean, isn't there a lot of things that people manufacture that are dangerous or could be used in a dangerous fashion by people seeking to do harm to others that aren't law-abiding citizens? I don't know why it would be the responsibility of a manufacturer to make sure that uh, steps are taken to mitigate that. I mean, there's already laws that make these things preventable, and if the person is, or that doesn't prevent them, but laws that make them illegal, and if the person who's committing the crime doesn't pay any attention to the laws, why are we pushing that responsibility onto the gun owners? It just doesn't make sense. But it does add to the attorney general's sort of toolkit in what they can do to sue. All right, let's see. Let's keep rolling here. We got 1445 relating to strengthening and clarifying the authority of the Attorney General to address law enforcement and local corrections. I think this is similar to the other one. I'm not going to read all that, but I think this is similar. Here we'll read the opening. An act relating to strengthening and clarifying the authority of the Attorney General to address law enforcement and local correction agencies' misconduct through investigation and legal actions, adding new sections. So again, it sounds like what they're doing is they're pushing the oversight to Olympia. I mean, I would have thought there would have been already a little oversight on that if it weren't handled appropriately locally. But are we taking the control and the ability for local authority to handle the situation, and then we're taking it out of their control, and then we're placing it into the stew pot of the attorney general? I don't know that I like that idea, because now we have communities that are far away from where things might be happening in Olympia, and I would think that that would create some conflict again. And the other thing with these is, if the attorney general sort of becomes this almost a governing body of these things, then the law enforcement agents sort of are, they answer to him. And I don't think I like that idea of having Bob Ferguson or somebody worse in the future have authority like that. Anyway, concerning. Let's see, 1445, okay, 5477, an act relating to implementing the recommendations of the Washington State Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People Task Force. So I think has to do with creating a task force to help with missing people. and an act relating to implementing the recommendations of the Washington State Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People Task Force. So, and I believe it puts more sort of power into the hands of the Attorney General and financial resources. So again, maybe a good thing by itself, but when used in combination with some of these other more concerning bills that are being pushed through, it raises my concern. Okay, we did that. And there's actually a couple of them that are sort of like that. So we have here 1143, an act relating to enhancing requirements for the purchase or transfer of firearms by requiring a permit to purchase firearms. And I think that's a companion bill to 5211. Basically, it's a firearm purchase licensing purchase scheme that requires people to get a license to purchase firearms. And I believe it's overseen by the Attorney General's office. An act relating to enhancing requirements for the purchase or transfer of firearms by requiring a permit to purchase firearms, firearm safety training, and a 10-day waiting period. Prohibiting firearm transfers prior to completion of a background check, updating and creating consistency in firearms transfer and background check procedure. And sort of by centralizing a lot of this information, whether it be criminal or mental health, things like that, and then allowing potentially biased people to have a blanket control over how that information is handled or processed. That makes me concerned. Not simply just the sheer fact that this feels like a Second Amendment infringement and a Washington State Constitution infringement, but just the sheer fact that we're now adding this level of power, these levels of power, almost like tiers that sort of trickle down from on high at the throne of the Attorney General of Washington State. And I don't like that. And I hope you don't either. Or you alleviate my concerns by sharing with me some good reasons why I shouldn't be. So those are basically the same too. Here we go. 5509, an act relating to the creation of Washington State Public Infrastructure Bank. That just that by itself is basically they want to create this bank that helps them to distribute money to public infrastructure projects. I'm not really a financially savvy person, but I know it does mention that the Attorney General is going to be counsel to that bank. And that may be sort of uh, part of the process. I guess, that may be common practice to get him on board with handling as a counsel to that. But what I concerns again is just sort of this like centralized multi levels of control. Now we have somebody who's who may be handling legal implications for somebody who's doing bad things within the state, and they all work in cahoots together because they all sort of agree. And again, I'm not super financially savvy on this sort of stuff, but it just adds to my concern. Again, it's just more things that are being added on to the Attorney General's authority. 5509. So now we have 1152, an act relating to consumer gender discrimination. Okay, this one is really odd. It allows for an act relating the consumer gender discrimination. I mean, and it brings some power to the Attorney General to handle this stuff. I would think that if it's a discrimination issue or something that's handled in a local sense, like the local authorities would have that. In other words, if a law is broken, then the police handle it. If it's not in the police's jurisdiction, then the sheriffs handle it. If it's not in the sheriff's jurisdiction, then it sort of keeps going out. I understand it may be like civil versus like a criminal thing, and maybe that's what this is more to do with. But again, placing another tier of what could potentially be used as a weaponized by people or other political figures against the citizens of Washington State, that sort of concerns me here. I don't like when we start to go with this discrimination, gender discrimination stuff. I mean, I'm a man, I get discriminated by my gender all the time. And I don't want I don't want hall monitors. I don't want to teach my son that hall monitors are who we turn to for this stuff. I don't want to teach my daughter that hall monitors are who we turn our to for help with this. We figure out how to work through it ourselves. And anyway, and also it just adds again another level of power and authority to the attorney general. All right, so what do we got? We did that, encouraging. Yep. Okay, got that. Let's go to the next page. Sorry, I'm so clumsy here. It's kind of an interesting thing. So 5171, an act relating to consumer gender discrimination. Same thing. It's like a companion bill to that last one. 1512, an act relating to providing tools and resources for the location and recovery of missing persons. Um, I mean, that sounds like a good one. I mean, but again, as long as it's not abused. And with some of the motions that the Attorney General has made and the things that we're doing in the legislature right now, I worry that something like this could be abused. And new section added, subject to the availability of amounts appropriated for the specific purpose, the Office of the Attorney General shall publish, maintain the website. So this is an act relating to providing tools and resources for the location and recovery of missing persons. Again, sounds good by itself, and it may be good, but all together with all of this, with this sort of multi-faceted thing, adding power to the Attorney General makes me concerned. 177, an act relating to the missing murdered indigenous women and people cold case investigation unit. I think there's like 3 of them. Yep, 5137. That's the same. And I think there's actually another one. Yep, relating 1177. So again, this is sort of that same thing, cold case. And this one might be an all right thing. I mean, get families justice and help people out from cold cases. Nothing wrong with that. As long as it's, but again, it's just another thing added to the toolkit of the Attorney General, who has made it very clear he's biased towards certain types of people, and that I think is where the great deal of my concern comes from. If I felt like we had a pragmatic leadership in Bob Ferguson, this might not bother me as much. Anyway, that's all for that page. Let's go on to number 3. Boy, this is really clumsy. Where is it? Do we have any others up here? No. Okay, we got 5265, an act relating to establishing firearms related safety measures to increase public safety by prohibiting the manufacture and importation. Okay, these are companion bills, and this is basically the assault weapons ban of 2023. An act relating to establishing firearms related safety measures to increase public safety by prohibiting the manufacture, importation, distribution, selling, and offering for sale of assault weapons by providing limited exemptions applicable to licensed firearm manufacturers and dealers for purposes of sale to armed forces branches and law enforcement agencies, and for purposes of sale or transfer outside the state and to inheritors. So, this one, he probably handles some of this stuff, but again, just another tool for him to use as a cudgel against Washington State. Okay, so and one I don't agree with. I don't think that firearms are the problem. All right, what do we got here? All right, so looks like that's about it. Anyway, so what I'm thinking is there's just an abundance of stuff. And the one final thing, okay, basically the coup de grace that sort of really wraps this up in a bow of concern for me, okay, is this bill being pushed through right now. All right, I'm going to switch you back over here. All right, and that is the establishing HB 133, okay, establishing the Domestic Violent Extremism Commission. So basically this is this is like everything. We take all those tools that we just went through, some of those that we didn't see, a lot that we did see, and we put it under, we look at it through the lens that this provides us, and we can see that now these things can all be used to sort of exploit the powers granted by HB 1333. And this bill is absolutely scary, and I believe it is an affront to everything important in the constitutional, because it basically creates an investigative unit, or I think a Stasi of sorts, that we're going to go in, and now we're going to investigate certain people who we feel fits the discriminatory term domestic violent extremist, and using things like information technology, social media, all that, all the tools that he's already got, law enforcement, all those things. And now we're going to wrap it all up in a bow, and this is how we're going to employ it. Some of these things might be okay by themselves. You know, like I could agree that, like, making sure we have indigenous or and people, tracking down those people, that seems like a good thing. But what is it going to be abused? And not only is it what it's going to be abused for now, maybe that's okay, but what it's going to be abused for 10, what it's going to be used to do 10 years from now, when my kids are raising their family or living here in Washington state, what happens then is my concern. All right, even if I liked Bob Ferguson and I trusted him, I should still look at this and go, yeah, this seems like we're really loading up the deck for somebody down the road to exploit and cause some serious problems. So anyway, that's sort of in a big nutshell what my concerns were. I hope that you'll take some inspiration and maybe pick up a shovel and help us dig here, because we need to inject our energy into this legislative session now more than ever. And when we sit here and we look over these bills, that takes a lot of energy, and I don't really understand it. But if we all do it, and then we all go into these committee hearings and we testify, and we make them spend the time to explain to us or to explain to their colleagues and listen to us, that's taking time away from them passing bills that they shouldn't be passing. And I think that's the only way we can really get around this, is we can prevent them from causing damage. So I really hope that this will inspire you. Maybe drop down in the comment section, talk about a bill that really bothers you, and then write out something as to why. And maybe the next person can take that and they can cut and paste it, and then they can put it into their comment or use it in their testimony, and they can get inspired and keep that machine grinding away, because we need the public's energy to be put back toward this. The Democrats, and let's be honest, it's the Democrats here. Democrats in the Washington State Legislature are on a war path, okay, a war path of attrition toward the Washington State people. They are just throwing bills out, and the more they do, like using a shotgun, okay, they're bound to hit something. And no matter what it is, the more they shoot that shotgun of bills out there, the more likely they're going to hit their target. And we've got to stop. We've got to put up, armor and stop them from doing that. We've got to spend energy, make them expend their own energy and waste time, okay? Because they have a finite amount of time, and we can help them spend that time. But we all need to do it together. 10 of us or 12 of us or some lobbyists and a few people out of the public won't do it. We need 100, 200, everybody signing up on every single bill, okay, going into the committee and every single bill, loading it up, all con, all pro, whatever you think it is, and loading it up and making sure that we are there, spending every minute we possibly can, okay, preventing them from passing this garbage. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. I hope you guys are all having a great day, and we'll see you next time.